Juton, when we were first acquaint. Your locks were like the raven, your bonny brow was brent, but now your brow is bent.
I first came to Ananda in 1977. I was an apprentice, and during that time I heard Swami's music. Swami was not here then. Then the next summer, 1978, I came back again and to live, and so I heard a lot more of the music. I remember feeling fine about it, except one song, There's Joy in the Heavens. I heard that and I thought it sounded like a Pepsi commercial. That didn't last long, because as I got deeper and meditated more and became more in tune with Ananda, I started understanding that the music was more a vibration than, and was outside of any type of music, any style of music. And at that point it was a bit of a folk style that Swami was writing in. But the words and music were so different than what you would hear in the world. And they touched one's heart very deeply. So I soon grew out of that opinion that the music was too light or too happy. The next summer in 1978, I came back again to live. Swami had been back from, I think, a trip to India he had taken the summer before, had written the path, and I met him and began singing in the Gandharvas, which was the name of the group back then. This was about 12 people. And we would practice and sing at many Sunday services. At one point, Swami, he had the Gandharvas touring somewhat, but he wanted a small group of just 5 people to tour and take the music out. So in the early, it could have been 1980, he had a man who was here then who had something to do with recording studios audition people for this small group. His name was Mark, and I don't know how much he knew about music, but Swami wanted him involved in that process. So we auditioned for him, and the group that came out of that was Trisha Ryan, Lakshman Simpson, Agni Ferraro, and Nirmala Simpson at the time. Swami sent us out, one of us, I think Lakshman, did the organizing and setting up the programs. We sang throughout California, the California West Coast, and some through Oregon and Washington. Swami was always very interested in whatever was going on in that world, as he was interested in so many parts of the work. But we definitely felt like we were part of something very core to our teachings and to spreading the vibration of Ananda and Master and Swami. Before we went out, he started writing 4-part harmony to many of the songs. This was a really blessed time, I think, for all of us. There were songs like Brothers, Well Done, Lord, Walk Like a Man. He may have had harmonies for some of those. Some of them he didn't, or maybe he just had 2 parts. So this is how the process worked. He was in silence, so he would write out the music by hand. He would he'd have me come down and give it to me, or he'd have Seva bring it up to me. I was at Ayodhya in the monastery at the time. I would take it to our rehearsals up in the little yurt where Nirmala and Lakshman lived. We would practice till late at night often, and then make a recording of the new version. Then I would take that back and give it to Swami. And I remember one time at the very beginning, I hadn't been around him that much, remember, and he had written me this typewritten note because he wasn't speaking, asking some question, and so I was writing the answer on the piece of paper. He said, "No, you don't need to be in silence. I'm the one in silence." So as time went on, he would type out his notes and I would answer, and that process would continue going back and forth. It was a really blessed time, especially for me, someone so new, but for all of us. it was like just resting and working and floating in Swami's and Master's vibration. We'd practice that music all the time. It was just a blessing. And then we'd record it, bring it back. Later on, when he was out of seclusion, he'd listen to us. So he'd have us come over to Crystal Hermitage, then Swami's Dome. And he'd sit on the couch and watch us. I don't know if other people who have spoken in front of Swami feel this, but you just didn't know quite what he was thinking. How much was he thinking about the parts? And you felt like sometimes he was just looking into your soul. It was always a blessing just to be in the room with him and to have his eyes blessing us and his hearing blessing us. And then to just the wonderful, friendly back and forth of making the songs better and doing exactly what he wanted. Would you like this note? How about that note? And the musicians were good, I think, which was satisfying to Swami. We were all musical. We knew about pitch. We could read music so we could learn things quickly. And so it just felt like a very satisfying process working with him. During the touring of the Ananda singers, one thing he told us was to pray before each program. Not that the program went well, but that we could help, through the music, those in the audience to feel more peace, to feel more joy. It was never about us. It was about blessing the people in the audience with this music. And we got better and better at it. In the beginning, someone said it felt like we were hoping for people's acceptance as we sang, as we performed. And after performing for many, dozens of programs, they felt like we were really bringing Swami's and Master's vibration to the audience. This is something Swami repeated to us again and again. Also, at one point during that time, we did an interview for some television station in Sacramento. And Swami said again, don't talk about what the music is or how wonderful it is. Talk about how it can uplift people's consciousness as they're listening to it, as they're singing it. And we had to learn over time to keep remembering that was the point. It wasn't so much the music, the harmonies, etc. It wasn't how good we were, although that certainly helped. But we were a ministry. We were trying to bless people and instruct them spiritually through the words and the vibrations of the songs. When we came home from these tours, we were often singing with Swami at concerts and at Sunday service, or we would be the ones just singing, or we would help him do the chanting. This is when he started including guitars in chanting. In the Temple of Leaves up by the Expanding Light, he would sit on his chair giving a class, and the five of us would be on the side doing guitars and singing with him as he led the chant. He also did a lot of recording at this time, and now as time is going on, some people in the group changed a little bit. But what I remember mostly is him having a lot of different people in the recording studio. And this is when he started writing his own chants. I am thine, Lord, I am thine, Joya, 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 Lord, when in darkness, and I will always think of thee, how shall I love thee, or quanto ti amerò. Norman Seeff, a famous photographer at the time, came to take pictures of Swami. And at one point he asked Swami to sing from different chakras. Not to sing, to look into the camera from the different chakras. So he took a picture of Swami focusing on the heart chakra, for instance, the spiritual eye. And as we looked at those pictures afterwards, you could tell a slight difference in the energy of each chakra, the energy of each picture. It would be fun to look at those now, 20, 30 years later, to see if we can tell a little bit more the consciousness of each of those chakras. But singing from the chakras, from different chakras, was something he did all the time, every time he sang. And eventually he put it into words and into writing and into an exercise where he taught us how to bring energy up. I call them the Ma exercises, so you could say exercises for feeling the chakras in your voice. So he'd have us bring our hands up through the chakras and out through the heart chakra, and then offer up through the spiritual eye, singing Ma. As we got more attuned to our chakras and to singing, we began to understand more what he was doing. Sometimes a song called for singing more from the throat chakra, sometimes more from the heart chakra. This was something, but again, it was something he did all those years. But as I said, this was something he was doing from the beginning. And it wasn't for decades till decades later that he started really explaining it to us more, which was a wonderful blessing, because then we could focus more on that consciousness as we were singing and teach that to the choir members and other people who were singing. Somewhere in the later 1980s, Swami got involved with the group Peki, and they did all their chanting and singing with guitars. And this he brought back to Ananda in America. He felt that our singing was often too slow or not with the harmonium, and it seemed like a really good way to infuse the chants with energy. This was a very new thing for us. We'd always chanted on harmonium with pretty much just the drone. And this is when also he started having us chant with him, because he didn't play the guitar that much, and he had Lakshman and Agni to do it. So to start this energy, he had us up there chanting with him, with the guitars and other voices. And as he wrote more of his own chants, he often used the guitar on those. Not all of them. And on Master's chants, and Nirmala knows more about this, but there were certain ones that he felt would not go well with the guitar. And so often he would say use quiet picking or no guitar at all. He was so tuned in to all those chants, and I'm speaking of Masters especially. He didn't just throw the guitar onto everything, where I think many of us would do that. He very carefully felt what was appropriate for each chant. And this is why it's good for us to tune in to what he said. It's not that we can't do these things ever, but in public, when we're trying to get across the highest vibration possible, it's good for us to tune in to what he was tuning into in terms of the chants and the vibration we want to put out with them. None of us were with Master. He was. He was very particular about his own chants and the rhythm, the notes. He felt that they were very specifically given to him, and that's how they should be sung. And that's how they should be sung to get the meaning across. So when we put out the Wave of the Sea chant book, the Ananda chant book, all of his chants are very specifically written out, and that's how he wanted them done.